Okay. Welcome back to What's Really Good with Tori Kindla. I'm Tori Kindla. And today I'm going to be answering some of y'all's questions. I got some questions in on Instagram a few weeks ago. Sorry y'all, I am not feeling the best today. Cedar went ahead and popped off this weekend. The Cedar levels, I guess, I don't know, they went crazy. Cedar is very high right now, and the temperatures have been doing this really fun thing that they like to do here in Texas, where they get really low, they drop really low, and it's really cold, and then the next day it's like 77 and it's warm again. So that always messes me up. So bear with me. I hope you all have enjoyed the last few episodes. I hope y'all loved the chaos with me and Emily Apolinar. If you haven't watched that video, seen that video, listened to that video, go watch it, y'all. It's funny. It's funny as hell. But today it's me. It's just me. It's solo. I'll have another guest very soon. Not entirely sure how soon. But anyway, I'm here, and again, not feeling the best. Going to see the doctor tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get a steroid shot. I do think that will help. But it's just allergies. I think it's just allergies. I guess we'll know for sure tomorrow. This happens every year though. My allergies act up. They act a fool. Yeah, I'm feeling comfy, cozy. I am in my PJ top and my PJ bottoms. But I have my face and hair done because I do have a gig tonight. So Joshy and I will leave for that here in a couple of hours. We should jump right in. I'm going to be answering questions. A few weeks ago, I put on my story on Instagram and on Facebook, what would y'all like to know? You can ask me anything and I will answer if I so choose to, which all of the questions that I received were questions that I'm super down to answer. I'll let y'all know who is asking, just so, I don't know. I think it's more fun that way. I'm pulling the questions up. I have them here on my laptop. Okay. I'm going to start on a lighter note with these questions. This question comes from my friend Seth Skahan. He said, thoughts on BBLs. It's your body. Do what you want to do. Do what you want with your body. Do what you want, don't stop, let's party. If you're paying for it, or you got someone else paying for it, and that's what you want to do, then do it. I'm like, if it doesn't pose a threat to you, and I mean, nowadays, all types of surgeries pose all types of threats. So if that's what you like, then do it. I don't know if I'm supposed to have much more of a thought on that, but if that's what you want to do it. Next question is from Theo J, my friend Johnny, who's also a musician. Theo J Music. Scheduling as a performer and the preparation to perform. Scheduling as a performer. Scheduling wise, I have been lucky enough that Josh, my husband, who's the lead guitarist and also a vocalist in my band, he has been in the music scene here in San Antonio a lot longer than I have. He started playing music when he was 18 or 19. I couldn't even tell you what year that is. But he's been doing it he's 30 now. So a little over 10 years he's been in the scene. I did not come in, step on the scene, check out the way I lean. I did not come onto the scene until I was 28. So that was 4 years ago. I've gotten a lot of contacts through him. There are certain contacts that I have, again, this is scheduling. There are certain contacts that I have because of the band that I was previously a part of, places that I used to play with that band. I formed great relationships with either the owner or the bar manager or whoever was booking musicians and bands at the time. And I stayed in contact with them and then ended up continuing to book with them. And then when Jackie Not Marilyn was born, which was about 2.5 years ago, I haven't gotten, I reached out to Josh's contacts, the contacts that I had been working with that previous band, and then just good old emailing people, messaging people on Facebook, like different artists, I'm sorry, not artists, different venues, different bar owners, just reaching out, or if going on their Facebook or their website and you see there's an email, finding that email and sending out my band inquiry to the email. Or sometimes websites for different spots will have a live music inquiry, filling that out. There have been times where we're playing, example, let's just say the VFW downtown. My band is playing the VFW. There's a restaurant owner or a bar owner or a GM that works at a venue, and they're like, hey, like, I love your band. Y'all are great. Can I get a card, or can I give you my contact information? I'd love to have y'all come play at my bar, my restaurant. That has also happened as well. I do, for my band, for Jackie Not Marilyn, I do a lot of the scheduling. I do a lot of the reaching out. I would say that I am the band's manager, so I'm the one consistently, reaching out, scheduling with our band. Whenever we do book a gig, I have a note on my phone where I just put the day, the time, and the venue that we're going to be there. I have it for every month. I mean, we are for a certain venue, we're booked out until the end of 2026. So making sure I'm keeping that updated and throwing that in our band's group message every so often, just to keep the guys up to date and refreshed on what we have coming up, especially if it's a private gig or a bigger event where I need to make sure, like, hey, y'all, keep your schedule clear for this day, because it's a really, really important one. We need all 5 of us present, and we need our core members present. One thing that my band knows is a pet peeve of mine, and I know that it happens. It's just the reality when you're working with musicians who are in multiple projects. But a pet peeve of mine is having to have my bandmates sub out. It just frustrates me because our core unit is so solid, and we've built something so solid, and there's a particular sound that we have with our core unit. And when we have to sub in for different musicians, there are songs on our set list that we won't be able to do. There are, a lot of times, there are songs that, or sets that I will have to do the bulk of the singing because, say, Adam, our bassist, is out. Well, he's also one of our vocalists. So then if we sub in a bassist that doesn't sing, then the workload of a 4-hour set is divvied up between just Josh and I, where if Adam was present, that vocal load is divvied up between Josh, myself, and Adam, and it just makes it easier on me. But that's the reality, again, of having musicians in multiple projects, which I'm like, I don't mind at all. Obviously, I think it's kind of weird when people are like, no, you shouldn't be working with other people, or, it's just a frustration that I've run into a few times. So it's just something I've learned, like, okay, you can't always control that. Sometimes your people are going to be out and you have to sub in people that is a given working in the music industry. But I learned to just say, okay, you know what? We're going to work with what we have. We're going to do these songs and we'll divvy up the vocal load in this way, and yeah. Okay, so that's really scheduling. I do our schedule for the band for the most part. And we do book through a couple of booking agents, which can be very helpful. As my friend Corey Weaver said, booking agents are a tool, not the end all be all. Which was very helpful for me to hear, because sometimes booking with an agent can be frustrating, and I can go more into that if you would like, but if you're a musician in the scene, then you know. The next part of Johnny's question is the preparation to perform. Right now, my band is just a cover band. When Jackie Not Marilyn is booked for a gig, we are doing solely covers, because my band, we don't have any originals. So I do feel like, yes, while there is preparation that goes in to a gig, it's also not, I guess the preparation looks different than if you're doing an original show. I can't really even speak too much into an original show because I've never done one. I have one original song that's out, and that's on my husband's most recent album, Disco in the Basement. And so my preparation for that was just making sure I knew my lyrics. I know when to come in. And getting together with the musicians for when we did the album release party, which was 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. But I think the preparation just looks like, for me right now in our band, it looks like knowing the songs that we do. For me, I go in and I make sure that there is a set list prepared. Now that's not always the case. Those are for bigger gigs, where we feel like we don't want a whole lot of dead air in between. These are for gigs where we feel like the crowd is high energy and we want to keep the energy in the room going. If the crowd is dancing, a lot of the time it is for those high energy dancing crowd type gigs. So gigs like at Pix Bar in San Antonio or Crossroads in Fredericksburg, we know typically at 99% of the time the crowds that frequent these bars are going to dance. They're not going just to listen. They want to get up, they want to move. So to make sure that we're all prepared, I make a set list. I map it out. Set 1, we're going to have at least 10 songs, because typically your first set is going to be an hour, and you can usually hit, at least with my band, you can hit 10 songs within an hour. And then I have even the break mapped out. And then the next set 2, all of the songs. And then the break mapped out. And then for the final set 3, all of that mapped out. That just helps my brain. It also helps Joshua. He's our technical director, I guess you could say, or in those gigs, he's our MD. He's the one that's talking through the talk back or calling the shots. Usually calling the shots through the talk back, or letting the band know like, hey, this is what we're doing next, or these are our next few songs. For me, that helps the preparation, as far as knowing what songs we're doing, what to expect, and knowing how, if we're on stage and things start to shift, and you can read the room and you can know, but things start to shift, and okay, we're not gonna stick to the set list. We're not gonna do Ain't Nobody right now. We're gonna do Drinking Problem by Midland, because we see that people like to two-step. So just paying attention and being prepared in that way. Preparation can also look like the physical preparation, taking care of my instrument, which I'm the vocalist. So I need to make sure that I'm drinking enough water. I take supplements every single night that help my body. I am really bad at doing vocal warm-ups, but my friend Nalani just put me onto a vocal straw, and that is really easy for me to do. Not saying that vocal warm-ups are not easy. They are. They're I guess it's just like one of those things, like, I've done so many gigs without actually warming up before that I'm like, I don't need to warm up. Which is not smart, y'all. That's dumb. That's a dumb way to look at it. Because vocally, warming up your vocal cords is necessary. It's helpful. It's beneficial. Your vocal cords, your folds are a muscle. So just like a runner should stretch before he runs, or she runs, or they run, a vocalist should also warm up their muscle. And I'm not the best at doing that, but thank you, Nalani, for putting me on to the vocal straw awareness. Straw awareness. So there's that preparation. I also have a nebulizer where I'm doing a nebulizer treatment where it's not a vaporizer, it's a nebulizer, and I do that before and after a gig with saline solution, and that just helps like prepare and like relax and hydrate my vocal folds. What else do? I do a nasal rinse sometimes, like tonight I did a nasal rinse to help just clear out my congestion and drainage, because I have a gig tonight, and I won't do that all the time. I don't do it all the time. Like, I'm not doing it all year, because I do gig all year. I do it when my allergies are acting up or when I have drainage or congestion, like right now. I also have my nebulizer, and then I have a humidifier. I do have a Vicks humidifier. And then there's something else that I have, and I can't remember the name of it. I'm going to try to look it up. It's not a humidifier. That's not how you spell a humidifier. I do have a Vicks humidifier, but it's one that goes over a vapor. Is it a vapor? Is it a vaporizer? Vicks steam inhaler. It is a steam inhaler. I do that too. I'll do that. I have a Vicks steam inhaler. So I do a lot of how would you call that? What would you, nebulizer, steam inhaler, humidifier, just these different things to help my breathing and to help the flow of air. Because as a vocalist, air is so important in making sure you're using your air properly. That's so important. Preparation to perform. What else? I feel like there's more that goes into it. Y'all, something that I completely forgot to mention, which is crucial to vocal health and the preparation physically, that I am just catching and editing, is sleep. If I don't get enough sleep, my voice is the first thing to go. So I just needed to throw that out there. I need enough sleep, or else my voice is not going to function at the capacity that it can. Carry on. But the biggest thing I think for me is just the vocal health, physically the vocal health, and then mentally preparing the sets and making sure all of my bandmates are on the same page. I think that's really all I have to say right now. If there are any follow-up questions on that, please feel free to let me know. You could leave a comment or DM me on Instagram or Facebook. There's more. Hold on. Okay, my cousin Vivian. What's your most embarrassing story? There's not one that comes up that I am like, oh my gosh, that was so embarrassing that happened to me. That it's like I kind of haha funny, laugh it off. One that sticks with me or that comes up of embarrassing, and it was actually pretty traumatizing, but I'm gonna tell it. My first job was working for Bill Miller Barbecue. I was 16 when I got that job, and I quit at 22. I worked there for 6 years. And one of the bosses that I had in those 6 years, I was scared of him. He could get real angry. He had a temper. He had a huge temper. And I also felt like he didn't like me. There were coworkers I had that he loved. He definitely had his favorites, which is fine. Like I didn't need to be his favorite. Although I probably really wanted to, because the people pleaser in me and the need to perform and the perfectionist in me definitely wanted that from any leadership figure in my life. But he scared me, and I think he knew that he scared me, and I think he liked that, and I could be totally wrong. Obviously, I'm not going to name names, but I also I was a great worker when I was there, but I wasn't the best worker in the sense that I would call in, and I whatever a teenage early 20s year old would do. Although I feel like there are people that are in that age range that never call in. So I don't know, maybe just completely delete all that out of your mind. But anyway, I was the type of worker that if I was up late the night before, or I went out with friends the night before, I'd call in. I'd wake up and call in, because I was working the breakfast shift. I would do like 6:30 to 3 or 6 to 2. Sometimes it was like 5:30 to 2:30 or 3. So there was a long period of time I did 6 to 5, because I was also a part-time student in college. So I would work 6 to 5. Anyways, 6 to 5, like 2 days a week, and go to school the other 3 days during the week. But anyway, my most embarrassing story, what comes to mind, was I had given, it was like shift change, and during like shift change, like I get off at 5, so the majority of the closers would come in at 5. They'd either come in at 2 o'clock or 5 o'clock. And there was this kid that, one of my coworkers, He's there, he's ordering his food. And I was working chicken table, doing bell and chicken table. If you worked at Bill Miller's, then you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, my job was to put fries on his plate. So somebody from the front called like, hey, I need a fry plate. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna bring up the fry plate. And so I knew that it was for this kid. I knew that it was for a coworker / friend of mine. So I gave him like a hefty amount of fries. Like with a fry plate, you're giving the customer, whoever it is, a small fry. I probably gave him like a medium to a large fry. That was my bad. I'm not saying that I was not wrong in that. I was, but we did that with everybody. Like all of my coworkers did that for their coworker homies. Like this wasn't anything that that was new, or that it was like the first time an employee served a large fry when she should have been, or he should have been serving a small fry. It wasn't anything new or out of the ordinary. Like we always just hooked each other up in that way. And so anyway, I bring up the fry plate. Again, it was like a large fry when it should have been a small. And there's probably like a minute goes by probably. By the way, the manager has to go and give a discount for the employee that is buying food before they start their shift. So a manager has to be called, hey, I need a discount. The manager comes over, applies their fingerprint or gives their fingerprint to apply the discount. So obviously my manager sees my coworker's plate. And that's when the temper just boom. And this manager in particular, there were multiple times where he would yell. Like he would raise his voice and like in front of customers, because Bill Miller's, the way that the structure is, the only way you can really get away from the patrons, the people eating there, is like to go into the office and like close the door in the office, or go into like the storage room, which doesn't have a door. Like if you raise your voice loud enough and you're not behind a closed door, like people will hear you. But this manager in particular had raised his voice multiple times in eyeshot of customers. So that was just kind of a normal thing. It didn't happen all the time, but it wasn't like, oh, this is crazy that this is happening. Like it happened a few times with me specifically. So anyway, he sees the plate. My manager sees the plate. He's very unhappy with the amount of fries that are on said plate. I literally hear him, and he shouts it. I think at me. He definitely knew that it was me, but I think he was trying to humiliate me. And he was like, who made this fry plate? And I immediately just was super freaked out. I was like, shit, I'm in trouble. I'm in so much trouble. Like, it was just like what I'm trying to think of a good analogy for what I felt in that moment. I was just really embarrassed. I knew that I was in trouble. I knew that I was about to be in big trouble. And sure enough, the manager pulls me into the office. I can't even remember if the door was open or closed. Either way, other coworkers heard it. I don't think any patrons, the restaurant wasn't busy at this time. I don't think patrons, people eating there, just, customers heard. But he went off on me and like was full on yelling at me. And I had already had a couple of run-ins with this manager. So I knew that where his temper could escalate to, and I just felt really bad. Like I knew that I had done wrong by serving my coworker the amount of fries that I did. Like I knew that it was my bad, but my manager should have never taken it to that level of anger and should not have been yelling at me like that. But at the time, I'm like 20 years old. I don't know that. I'm 20 or 21, I want to say. And I don't know that. I just think I just deserve to be punished. I also had a real fear of punishment, which is probably what made it so much worse. But what ground was I going to stand? Like I did something wrong in that moment and I was just so embarrassed. I'm pretty sure I got written up, but the write-up was nothing in comparison to the scolding and like the yelling at that I had just received from this manager. So I was really, really embarrassed. Like I don't think I cried in that moment, but I definitely, once my mom picked me up from work, cried. I was in therapy at the time, and I brought it up. I remember bringing it up to my therapist and just bawling. Like, I just could not stop crying. Like, I was traumatized. And I don't want to say that it was this manager's fault. Like, yes, the manager traumatized me, but I think the reason it affected me so deeply is because I had been traumatized prior to that. And not just by him, but by other people in leadership or other elders in my life, family members. You know, it was terrible. But I got in a lot of trouble at work, and I was just, that's my most embarrassing story that comes to mind, because I was so humiliated in front of my other coworkers too. Like, these are people that you work with every day, that mind you, they're around my same age. There are some that were younger because Bill Miller's hires at 16. So and those are closers. So a lot of the employees coming into work, a lot of my coworkers coming into work the day that this all happened, they're closers because they're high school kids. They're getting out of school and they're coming straight to work. And it was just embarrassing, like all of these people being around my age, seeing me get scolded like that. And in such a, what's the word? I just had it. Devaluing way, I guess you could say. I just felt very devalued. And like I said, I made a mistake. I should not have hooked my coworker up in that way, to where I just gave him that much food. Like, I knew it was something that I knew better. I shouldn't have done that. But I also don't think that I don't think it warranted that kind of response. I mean, my manager could have been upset with me, and I understand him being upset with me about that, but just the way that he reacted was insane. So yeah, most embarrassing story. That was from my cousin Vivian. Music from Nalani. My friend Nalani asked, what got you into music? Man, ever since I was little, I loved singing. I really just loved singing and performing and writing songs. So when I was 9 years old, I got into this organization called Network for Young Artists, which I think I talked about in the first podcast. NYA is the acronym. It's here in San Antonio. It's a nonprofit organization geared toward kids and young adults whose families or whose selves could not afford regular dance lessons, singing lessons. And so I got involved in that because my god sister was a part of it. And my grandparents, who are her parents, were like, they talked to my mom, Ezzy being my mom, you should put Tori in NYA. She might really enjoy it. Brianna's in it. She enjoys it. She performs. She's in vocal lessons every week. So you should get Tori in vocal lessons every week and see where that takes her. So when I was 9 years old, I joined NYA, and that's how I started performing. I did a vocal assessment probably a couple months in, and once you go through that vocal assessment, you are able, if you pass it, you're able to start performing with the organization, like in public. So my first performance was downtown Market Square, and that's really how I started. I did that from the age of 9 to about 16, and then I stopped. And I did talk about this in my first podcast episode, I believe. I stopped because I had a really traumatic experience of forgetting my lyrics, and then it just stuck with me, and I kept forgetting my lyrics every time I'd get on stage. So just that whole being afraid that I was going to forget my lyrics, I wasn't able to be in the moment and enjoy my actual time on stage. So I stopped until I was 28. When I was 28, I moved back home, and I got into the cover band scene. And that's how I met my husband, Joshua. And I've stuck with that ever since. I'm trying to keep it short. I'm realizing that I am very long-winded in answering these questions. So that's really, I think I just grew up around music. I grew up with both of my parents loving music. My dad was a huge classic rock fan. So I grew up listening when I was in the car with him. I grew up listening to 99.5, which was Kiss FM, 107.5, not with my dad. That was with my grandparents. That was 107.5 was Tejano music. So with my grandparents, I'd listen to Tejano music, Spanish music, but with my dad, it was 99.5. It was 104.5 maybe. Like it was Kiss, it was KZEP. With my mom, it was a lot. She listened to a lot of different music, but really, really, we used to listen to a lot of like 70s disco. She had this collection of the entire decade, 1970s, all of the number one hits in each year of the 70s. And so I really do think that it was my parents and my grandparents. I mean, I feel like I grew up surrounded by music, not necessarily surrounded by musicians. My grandpa Ruben, he was a musician, he was a composer, but I never met him because he passed before I was born. At least I believe he passed before I was born. I don't remember meeting him, but he was musically inclined. And then my great-grandmother on my dad's side, my mama's dad, my dad's mom's mom, she was also musically inclined. She was an artist as well, but I never got to meet her either. So those were the influences, I guess you could say, where I was influenced musically, or where the talent, oh my gosh, what am I saying? Where the talent was passed down. I think my blood sugar is low. Let me check it, you guys, hold on. So yeah, okay, because my parents didn't play instruments, and neither one of my parents can sing. Sorry, Mom. My mom jokes around, even though it's a true story, but she jokes around how whenever she used to sing to me as a child, I'd start to cry and ask her to stop singing. Sorry, Mom. There was definitely musical talent on both sides of my family. I just never got to meet the people that were musically talented, my grandpa Ruben and my mama's mother. But I grew up around music, so that was cool. That was a blessing. Okay, my friend Monique she asked two different questions. What message do you want your podcast to send in 5 years? I think the message I would like this podcast to send is that you can be yourself. I think that's it. You can be yourself. I'll probably look back on this podcast in 5 years and be like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have said that, or maybe I should have phrased that differently. Maybe I should have talked about this, that, or the other. But I think that's just humanity. We are evolving constantly. Things are constantly changing. The world around us is constantly changing. I think I want this message, what I want this message to send, this podcast message to send is like, be yourself. But if your self in 5 years changes completely from this self right here, right now, that's okay. Like, humans are not supposed to not evolve. We're supposed to evolve. We're supposed to grow. We're not supposed to stay in a box. I guess what I want the message for this podcast to send in 5 years is that it's okay to change and grow and evolve and move past certain things. And it's okay to go back and be like, man, I wish I would have omitted that, or man, I really wish I would have spoken about that. And we're just humans. And I just want us, and myself included, to extend grace to people. Monique also had another question. What's a question you think every person should ask themselves at least once? Maybe it would be that, are you okay? Are you okay? And not in like a condescending way, like, are you okay? But like, are you good? Are you okay? Are things good? That answer alone might change in 5 years. It might change tomorrow. It might change tonight. But that's what I'm gonna go with. Another Johnny. This is not Theo J music. This is Johnny from Culture Jam, another band that I've had the pleasure of working with once in the past. What brings you the most joy? Honestly, performing and laughing with my husband. Laughing with like people I love. I love being able to laugh. But laughing It's just the best. But performing, entertaining, and laughing. Next question, also from Johnny in Culture Jam. Do you feel that venues in San Antonio pay musicians enough? It depends on the venue. Certain venues pay, yes, they pay great. Other venues, I would challenge you to raise your prices. But it also depends on the band. I think I hate to say this, but it depends on the talent you're bringing in. Not so much the experience, because my band, I guess, in comparison to other bands in San Antonio, like, we're still pretty new. But I will say, like, we're pretty good. We're pretty good for being as new as we are. So I don't think years or how long a band has been around should count. But then again, too, music is so subjective. So what I think sounds really good, what sounds really good to me can sound, another person can think like, oh, that they're not good. So, in short, I think a lot of venues could pay musicians more, but there are venues out there that pay musicians pretty well. And I can expound on that too, if you all would like me to expound upon that. Another one from Johnny with Culture Jam. How do you feel about using tracks with a live band? Unethical or smart money practice? Or smart $ practice? I think that's totally just up to you. My band has never used tracks, but I could definitely see where it could be helpful. I don't think it's unethical. I think if there's a venue or a manager of a venue that's like, hey, we need everything to be live, no tracks. That's one thing. But I've never worked with a venue that's like, you cannot use tracks. I've been around musicians who are like, people or bands that use tracks, like it's a joke, like, haha, like, bands shouldn't have to use tracks. But I think it's completely up to you. I'm like, maybe sometimes bands don't have, the skill level or even enough musicians to provide what the actual song is giving. I know that I'm a musician that I like what I like about my band is that we make the songs our own. But I also, vocally, I like to keep it similar to the artist on the track, if you will. I don't think it's unethical, though. I think it's just really up to you and what sound you're trying to bring. There was a band that they're no longer a band, or they've just rebranded. On the Way. There's a band that I used to love to go watch. They were called On the Way. They used tracks. They sounded incredible. And they did tracks with 3 of them because they had a vocalist, they had their lead guitarist who also did vocals, and then they had their drummer. Whenever they did do a 3-piece, they also had a 4-piece as well with a bassist, but they used tracks and I thought they sounded fine. I mean, tracks are going to enhance, I guess it depends on the way you use them, but like, tracks can really enhance your sound. Now, some musicians may think that's cheating, but like, that's also subjective too. Like, using tracks can be subjective. I'm just like, hey, if you want to use tracks, then go for it. If you don't want to use tracks, don't do it. I don't think it's unethical. I think it's just really up to you. It just depends on whether or not you want to use tracks. My band and I have flirted with the idea of using tracks. We haven't, but we might in the future. I don't know. It could be a smart practice. It could be, especially if you're trying to downsize. Your full band can't be there. Say my full band can't be there. There's 5 of us. Only 3 of us can make it. Tracks could probably save our ass in that situation. Johnny from Culture Jam. I want to be a better singer. What would you recommend for me to do to help? Practice. What I mean by that is, if you can, get with a vocalist, a vocal teacher. Find a vocal teacher. I know a few here in town. I could give you recommendations, but I think everyone and anyone singing or playing an instrument could always benefit from being in lessons. Same with acting. Like anybody that's acting or not actively acting, if you're an actor, actress, you could always benefit from a lesson. Now, you may not be able to, you may not be in a situation to be able to take a lesson, whether that be financial or your schedule or what not. I will say to that, YouTube and social media has so many good resources. There are on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I'm sure you could find them on like Facebook Reels as well. Vocal instructors who will give really helpful warm-ups, cool downs. I personally I'll go to YouTube and I'll type in Cheryl Porter vocal warm-up. That's CHERYL space Porter, PORTER, vocal warm-up. And she is a vocal instructor for a lot of the Disney singers, a lot of the actresses, and a lot of the vocalists that come out, that do Disney, like work on Disney Channel and stuff. So I do her warm-up specifically. I also have Spotify. I'm sure it's probably on Apple Music, and it's also on YouTube, Jacob's Vocal Academy. So that you can find. I'm pretty sure that's on YouTube, but it's on my Spotify, Jacob's Vocal Academy. And let me see, just looking at it now, there are 12 different exercises, and each is about 2.5 minutes long. Some are 1.5 minutes, some are under a minute. But I would recommend going on YouTube or, Spotify, Apple Music. YouTube is just always, I think, the easiest because it's free. But typing in, vocal warm-ups, what can I do? And some are, 10 minutes, like the Cheryl Porter one that I do is 10 minutes. If you do the Vocal Academy, the Jacob's Vocal Academy, you can choose to do like 3 of them, and that would probably be like right under 10 minutes, or you could do 2 of them. Really up to you. Also, my friend Nalani, she put me onto a vocal straw, so you can check on Amazon, vocal straws for vocalists. But the one that I bought, it came with 3 of them. One is to improve, and that's for your like vocal stamina and your breathing. To improve, there's a straw to improve, there's a straw to train, and there's a straw to heal. So on the way to a gig, I just got it this past weekend. So on my way to the gig, I did the straw, and it has instructions in this product. But on the way to the gig, I used the straw to train, and then on the way home from the gig, I used the straw to heal. So I would just recommend starting there, using the resources that you have. So again, YouTube, you can also probably research diaphragm exercises, because in singing, your diaphragm your diaphragm is so important. Your breathing mechanism is so important, because you don't want to sing incorrectly. You don't want to sing unhealthily where you're gonna strain and hurt yourself, because if you hurt your vocal folds, if you get nodules or nodes, or like all of those things can affect your career in the long run. So you want to make sure that you are using your diaphragm, using your whole instrument when you're singing, or your whole body is what I mean when you sing, and not your throat. Because if you're using your throat, then you're straining, and that's unhealthy. There was one more thing that I was going to... hydration. It's so important for you to hydrate. It takes 16 hours. So if you're going to a gig and you're going to sing, drinking like a cup of water, a glass of water on the way to the gig, or a few hours before the gig, isn't going to help so much. You need to be drinking water days before the gig, just really every day. I used to drink a gallon of water a day. I've gotten away from that just because I just don't think about it. But what helps me when I am trying to focus on drinking water is having a 32-ounce water bottle. and just filling, like constantly just drinking that and filling that thing up. And when I go to gigs, I have this huge, like, I think it's a 64-ounce water bottle. And I take that with me to gigs, and I keep that with me on stage. Oh, okay, no, this is the last question, and it's also from Johnny from Culture Jam. Do you think older, seasoned musicians help a band or hurt their image? Man, that's a really good question. I don't know. Has that been, I don't want to sit here and ask, like, has that been your experience? But being that I'm not an older, seasoned musician at this point in my career, I mean, I am older than, you know, the teenagers and 20-something-year-olds, but I guess, honestly, this feels like another question that's objective. Is it objective? Subjective? Subjective. I feel like you can ask one person and it'll be like, yes, having an older seasoned musician is gonna hurt your image. And then you can ask another person and it's no. I don't think so, but I also do think that it is important as a seasoned older musician to kind of not try to like keep up with like the youngins per se, but just be aware of what is going on musically, I guess. I think it's important to know, you know, what are some songs that you're gonna go to if you go to a venue, you go to a gig, and like there's 30 different people requesting Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter, then it might be in your best interest to learn that one because that's a popular song that frequently gets requested. Not to say that you need to learn all of like the top 40 pop songs. I'm not saying that because I don't do that. But maybe just keeping up with like just being in the know. I have noticed with some of the older seasoned musicians here in San Antonio, a lot of older seasoned musicians do cover band gigs for fun, which is that is totally like, hell yeah. You know, you have a job outside of, you know, you have a full-time job outside of your cover band gig, or you're retired and, you know, you're just doing it for fun, which is okay. But I have noticed with some of them, those that do it for fun aren't always the tightest. It doesn't always sound the tightest or the most solid. And again, that's not for everyone. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement about all older seasoned musicians or older seasoned bands in our community. I'm not saying that. That's just something that I have noticed where I'm like, oh, okay. You know, maybe they do just do it for fun. It's really helpful for everyone in the band to be on the same page though. I don't think being seasoned or older, being a seasoned musician or an older musician hurts you, unless, you know, you're choosing, no, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to keep up with the youngins. If you just have this resistant, attitude. But I don't think that applies just to age. I think that's anyone. I think anybody in our scene, in the music scene, who is just resistant and unwilling to like learn and build and grow, that's just it's gonna do more harm than good to you and the musicians that you're working with. The music scene does evolve and it grows and it shifts. The industry does that. So I think as artists, we just have to be willing to maybe not that we have to evolve, grow, and shift ourselves, but definitely be aware of what it looks like and be open to it because it's not all bad. Change isn't always bad. But thank you all so much. Johnny from Culture Jam, Theo J, Johnny from Vintage Picks, and Johnny, I don't know what other bands you're in, I'm sorry. Honey Bunny, hello. I don't know the other ones though, but I do hope to go check any of your bands out soon. But thank you to Nalani, Monique, my cousin Vivian, who else? Seth with your BBL question. I hope y'all found that intriguing and interesting. And if you have follow-up questions or something in there that I spoke about sparked a conversation or a thought, message me or leave a comment. I'm here. And I'll see you next week. Thank you for being with me on What's Really Good. I'm Tori Kinla. I'll see you next time. God bless you all. Be safe and happy holidays.